Have you ever experienced that sharp, hollow feeling when someone you cared for walks away, leaving a silence that echoes louder than any words? You replay the moments, the conversations, the gestures, wondering if you missed a sign, a warning, or perhaps the one key thing that could have prevented this heartbreak. Carl Jung once observed, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Perhaps the repeated sense of abandonment is less about them and more about the patterns within you that remain unseen, unconscious, yet persistent. It is natural to search for meaning when love seems to slip through your fingers. The sense of rejection, of being misunderstood or left behind, creates invisible chains of self-doubt. Often we assume that being abandoned is random, a cruel twist of fate, when in fact it is a reflection of unresolved shadows we carry inside, patterns that attract the very dynamics we dread. Love is not merely an exchange of affection. It is a mirror, a landscape that reflects the deepest layers of our psyche. Jung reminds us, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. In this light, relationships are not just external events. They are opportunities to confront, acknowledge, and integrate our inner wounds. When someone leaves, it is not only their absence you feel, but the unresolved corners within yourself surfacing through loss. Recognizing this is the first step toward breaking repetitive cycles of abandonment and moving toward conscious, intentional love. If this resonates, continue reading. This journey is not about blame or guilt. It is about awareness and empowerment. By understanding the subtle dynamics of attraction, emotional triggers, and unmet needs, you can reclaim agency over your heart. Share this with anyone who has felt invisible in love, and if it touches you, affirm it with a like. Sometimes awareness alone sparks the first true step toward freedom from the patterns that have held you captive. The hidden triggers of being left behind. Sometimes being abandoned in love is not about the other person's intentions, but about patterns that have quietly taken root within us, long before the relationship even began. There are invisible forces, shadows of past experiences, unhealed wounds, and unmet needs that shape how we give love, how we receive it, and even whom we are drawn to. It is as though our hearts carry a silent script written by childhood, past heartbreaks, and moments of rejection, replaying themselves in the theater of our adult relationships. We may think we are choosing freely, yet these unconscious scripts pull us toward familiar pain, even when it disguises itself as attraction or excitement. Many of us carry unprocessed emotional shadows that influence our perceptions without us realizing it. Perhaps you were left feeling unseen as a child, or a caregiver's inconsistent affection left gaps in your sense of security. These experiences are not simply memories. They are active forces that color every connection you make. When someone shows the slightest distance, it echoes the past, triggering anxiety and fear. Often, it is not the other person who abandons us. It is the unresolved echo of our own history. Projection plays a profound role in this cycle. Carl Jung described projection as a way in which we attribute aspects of our own inner world onto others. If we fear abandonment, we may unconsciously seek partners who reflect that very fear. On the surface, this seems paradoxical. We desire love and stability, yet we are drawn to the exact conditions that provoke our deepest insecurities. The partner becomes a mirror, not a villain. Each withdrawal, each moment of emotional unavailability is an opportunity to confront our own unresolved patterns. Yet, without awareness, these moments can feel like betrayal, leaving us convinced we were abandoned again. Consider the story of Anna, a woman who had a recurring fear that her partner might leave her at the slightest mistake. She gravitated towards someone emotionally distant, not because she wanted pain, but because it mirrored the unresolved anxiety she had carried for years. Every subtle act of detachment reignited old fears, making her feel abandoned even when there was no real threat. Her experience illustrates how the perception of abandonment is often less about the partner's behavior and more about the unresolved patterns echoing within her own psyche. By understanding these hidden triggers, we gain the ability to pause before reacting, to observe our emotional responses with clarity, and to discern what truly belongs to the other person versus what belongs to our own history. Recognizing that feelings of abandonment are often projections of unhealed past wounds empowers us to respond consciously rather than falling into repetitive patterns. In doing so, we open the door to relationships rooted not in fear, but in awareness, growth, and mutual respect. Red flags you often ignore. In the dance of love, we often overlook subtle signals that quietly warn us of underlying patterns. These red flags are rarely dramatic. They are whispers, tiny fissures in the foundation that, if ignored, can widen into chasms of heartbreak. Many people dismiss them, thinking, "It's just a small thing," or "I'm overreacting." Yet it is precisely in these minor cracks that our emotional safety is tested. One common red flag is the partner who consistently dismisses your feelings or needs, even in small ways. It might be a remark that belittles your perspective, a failure to acknowledge your achievements, or a subtle deflection when you seek emotional support. At first, these gestures can appear trivial, easily rationalized as quirks or bad days. Over time, however, the cumulative effect erodes trust and fosters a sense of invisibility, leaving you questioning your worth. Jung would suggest that these patterns often reflect a shadow interplay. The aspects of ourselves that we do not fully recognize are mirrored back to us in the behavior of others. If we ignore these cues, we risk repeating cycles of abandonment. Another red flag is the allure of recurring tension that masquerades as excitement. There is a seductive pull in relationships that swing between highs and lows, but what feels thrilling may actually be exhausting and destabilizing. Emotional roller coasters can trick the mind into confusing intensity with genuine connection. You may find yourself addicted to the adrenaline of near conflict or the exhilaration of a fleeting reconciliation, unaware that it masks an absence of safety and stability. Recognizing this pattern is crucial. It is a signal that love has become entangled with unresolved personal histories rather than mutual growth. Inconsistencies between words and actions often go unnoticed because hope acts as a lens of forgiveness. You might hear promises of attention, commitment, or change, yet the reality rarely aligns. Ignoring this dissonance, clinging to the belief that love will bridge the gap, only perpetuates the cycle of disappointment. A small story illustrates this. Mark repeatedly told his partner that he valued emotional honesty, yet he avoided discussing important matters, leaving his partner feeling unseen. Each time, she rationalized the behavior, thinking, "He means well, he just needs time." This pattern slowly created a landscape where abandonment was not dramatic or sudden, but a gradual erosion of trust, leaving her feeling perpetually on edge. Understanding and acknowledging these subtle warning signs requires courage. It involves setting aside the desire to smooth over discomfort or to maintain the illusion of harmony. By paying attention to the quiet dissonances, the gentle dismissals, the recurring emotional turbulence, and the small but persistent inconsistencies, we gain insight into the health of the relationship and, more importantly, into the ways our unconscious patterns may be attracting these dynamics. Recognizing red flags does not mean cynicism. It is the first step toward conscious love, where awareness protects us from repeating painful cycles and allows us to cultivate connections that honor our worth. The illusion of rescue and validation. In the quiet corners of our hearts, many of us carry an unspoken expectation that love should rescue us, that someone's affection can fill the hollow spaces left by our past, our insecurities, or our loneliness. This illusion, believing that the right person will magically heal our wounds, often traps us in cycles of disappointment and abandonment. It begins subtly. Perhaps we feel drawn to someone who seems mysterious or emotionally distant, interpreting their aloofness as depth or intrigue. We hope that through our care and attention, love will bridge the distance, and in doing so, validate our worth. This pattern often arises from a misalignment between longing and reality. We confuse intensity for intimacy, excitement for stability. A partner's fleeting attention or momentary closeness can feel euphoric, a temporary balm for our fears of rejection. Yet when the initial thrill fades, we may find ourselves feeling emptier than before, as if the brief sparks of connection were a mirage in a desert of emotional isolation. Storytelling makes this tangible. Emma, for instance, consistently pursued partners who were emotionally unavailable, believing that if she loved hard enough, they would finally stay. Each relationship ended quietly, leaving her to wrestle with the haunting thought that perhaps she was unlovable, rather than realizing the pattern was a reflection of her unconscious need for validation through someone else's approval. The illusion of rescue is also intertwined with the desire for external validation. We sometimes seek partners not to share life, but to confirm our own significance. Compliments, attention, or emotional responsiveness are mistaken for genuine compatibility, and we cling to them even when other signals suggest imbalance. Jung would describe this as projection. We are projecting our unmet needs onto another person, expecting them to fulfill a role they never agreed to play. The danger is that we may mistake dependency for love, confusing the feeling of being needed with authentic connection, and remaining blind to subtle forms of abandonment that are already in motion. Breaking free from this illusion requires cultivating an internal sense of wholeness. Self-validation, learning to recognize and honor your own needs, is essential. It allows you to enter relationships not as someone searching for rescue, but as a whole person capable of both giving and receiving love consciously. This shift transforms love from a reactive, need-based experience into a co-creative journey, where connection is chosen freely, not desperately sought. By recognizing the ways in which we unconsciously seek validation through others, we begin to dissolve the patterns that invite abandonment, replacing them with grounded, conscious forms of intimacy. Recognizing grounded love amid the chaos of fleeting connections and emotional turbulence. Grounded love is often overlooked because it does not announce itself with fireworks or dramatic intensity. Grounded love is quieter, but it carries a strength that withstands storms. It is the kind of connection where mutual respect is not just a word, but a practice lived in daily actions. When someone respects your boundaries without question, listens to your thoughts without rushing to judgment, and holds space for your vulnerability without trying to fix or change you, they are practicing grounded love. In practical terms, grounded love reveals itself in consistency and accountability. Words align with actions, Promises are honored, not broken by convenience. Conflicts arise, of course, because no human relationship is free from friction, but resolution comes through communication, empathy, and compromise rather than manipulation or avoidance. Storytelling illuminates this. Imagine Alex and Jordan, two partners who often had differing opinions on career and lifestyle. Instead of arguing endlessly or withdrawing, they would take turns listening fully, expressing needs clearly, and seeking solutions together. Over time, their love matured, not because it was exciting or unpredictable, but because it was steady and nourishing, a foundation upon which both could grow individually and collectively. Passion and excitement are not absent in grounded love, but they exist without the chaos that often accompanies obsession or fear. Emotional highs do not feel like lifelines, but as natural rhythms of connection, moments of joy, curiosity, and shared laughter. One of the hallmarks of grounded love is feeling seen and valued without having to perform or earn affection constantly. You do not measure your worth by the degree of attention or approval from your partner, because the relationship itself supports your inner wholeness. Jung's wisdom reminds us that authentic love requires conscious participation from both sides. It is not about rescuing, projecting, or escaping loneliness. It is about meeting another soul with clarity, intention, and integrity. Recognizing grounded love means training your perception to distinguish between temporary thrills and enduring support, between illusion and substance. By attuning to these signals, you develop the capacity to enter relationships as a whole. Empowered individual, creating a cycle of love that sustains rather than depletes, that nurtures rather than wounds. Healing before connecting. Before entering into a meaningful relationship, there lies an essential step that is often overlooked: healing. Many people rush into love, hoping that another person will fill the voids left by past pain. But this only repeats cycles of abandonment and disappointment. True connection begins with a conscious commitment to understand yourself deeply, to uncover the hidden wounds that influence your choices, and to take responsibility for your emotional wholeness. Healing is not about erasing the past. It is about transforming it into insight, clarity, and self-compassion. Self-reflection becomes a daily practice. Ask yourself, what patterns keep repeating in my relationships? Where do I feel insecure, jealous, or overly dependent? When you confront these questions honestly, you begin to identify the triggers that unconsciously attract you to partners who may not be capable of giving you the stability you seek. Recognizing these triggers is a form of empowerment because it allows you to choose differently, to step out of unconscious cycles and into intentional love. Releasing old wounds does not happen overnight. It often requires grieving what was never fully acknowledged, forgiving what cannot be changed, and embracing solitude without fear. In this solitude, you learn to nurture your own needs, to offer yourself the attention and care that you might have been searching for externally. Boundaries become your allies. They define what is non-negotiable and what can be flexible, creating a framework that protects your emotional energy while still allowing openness and vulnerability. Testing relationships gradually is another crucial step. Compatibility reveals itself over time, not in moments of intense chemistry alone. Observing how someone communicates in conflict, respects your space, and responds to your needs under ordinary circumstances is far more telling than any fleeting romance. Healing before connecting means you enter relationships whole, bringing your clarity, resilience, and self-worth with you. It is the difference between seeking someone to complete you and meeting someone as a complete, empowered individual, ready to co-create a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual growth. A new perspective on love. When we view love through the lens of dependency, we risk repeating patterns of abandonment, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion. Many enter relationships hoping to be completed by another person, only to discover that no one can fill the voids left unhealed within themselves. A new perspective on love, inspired by Jungian psychology, reframes love as a co-creative process where two individuals meet as whole, self-aware beings and amplify each other's growth rather than mirror unresolved insecurities. Love, in this sense, is not a rescue mission or a test of endurance. It is a partnership grounded in respect, shared responsibility, and the conscious choice to nurture one another. This does not mean love is devoid of passion or intensity. Rather, the fire exists alongside stability and trust, not chaos or fear. Observing a partner's actions over time, how they communicate, support, and respond to your authentic self, becomes the compass for discerning whether love is healthy or merely addictive. Understanding that a partner's role is amplification rather than completion transforms the way we relate. When we stop seeking someone to fix us, we open the door to authentic connection, where joy is shared, vulnerabilities are honored, and growth is mutual. Healthy love empowers rather than diminishes. It challenges gently but never invalidates. It encourages exploration but never imposes fear. In this perspective, abandonment is not inevitable. Love becomes a space where two individuals can navigate life's uncertainties together, choosing to walk beside each other rather than fearing the solitude of separation. This approach requires courage. It demands the willingness to meet love as a conscious, intentional practice, rather than a chaotic surrender to desire or habit. The reward, however, is profound. Relationships that are resilient, enriching, and expansive, where each person can flourish individually and together. By embracing this philosophy, you no longer fear being abandoned because you understand that healthy love is not about filling gaps. It is about creating a shared journey of growth, trust, and mutual awakening. As we reach the closing of this journey, it is clear that being abandoned in love is rarely the product of chance. It is a reflection of deep patterns within ourselves, our unprocessed wounds, unconscious expectations, and repeated choices that echo unresolved fears. To prevent repeating these cycles, one must first recognize the subtle signs, honor the emotional triggers, and cultivate a selfhood capable of both receiving and giving love consciously. Understanding love as a co-creative partnership rather than a rescue mission changes everything. When you approach relationships from a place of grounded self-awareness, you no longer need to cling to someone as proof of your worth. Instead, you meet another person as a fellow traveler, and together, you can navigate the uncertainty of life with trust, empathy, and mutual respect. True love does not demand performance, it does not punish, and it does not abandon as a lesson. It is steady, nourishing, and liberating. Healing, self-reflection, and boundary setting are not mere preparatory steps. They are the very foundation upon which lasting love is built. When you release the need for someone else to fill gaps inside you, you free yourself from the unconscious gravity that attracts unavailable or inconsistent partners. You create the space for a love that mirrors your wholeness rather than your deficits. This is the transformative power of understanding yourself deeply, of seeing patterns for what they are, and of embracing the courage to choose love differently. In the end, the person who is right for you does not abandon you to teach a lesson. They walk beside you, steady, present, and invested in the shared journey of growth. By choosing awareness, self-compassion, and intentional connection, you shift from the fear of being left behind to the empowerment of conscious, grounded love. If you recognize these patterns in your own relationships, take a moment to reflect and share your insights. By doing so, you not only clarify your own path, but also provide guidance to others who may be trapped in cycles they do not yet see. Subscribe for more psychological insights, modern wisdom on love, and personal growth, and allow these reflections to guide you toward relationships that are fulfilling, authentic, and resilient.